Today on Locked On Hornets, we'll talk about one prospect whose draft stock is rising, Charles Lee. He's got some newbies on the coaching staff and this.
You don't change it if it goes in.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
Whoa, what is this? What is this? A new beat? If you're watching on YouTube, you got to see this grand reveal of the Locked On Hornets logo. That was some real cinematic art right there. Do we have you to thank for all of it?
Not all of it.
Okay.
We have a great director of production for the network, Brian Levine, who did the video piece of that. The audio accompaniment, yes, you do have me to thank for that. That is an original Doug Branson production there. Yeah, exciting. Locked On Hornets intro version 7. We've had 7 intros in our many years here on the network. So this is big. This is a big deal.
Yeah, look, I don't want to... well, you know what? You're right. It is a big deal. Let's spend some time on this because people do love the intro. Yes, we will pat ourselves on the back. You can pat yourself on the back for putting it together because people love it. They talk about it. I don't know. We probably get like a comment every couple weeks, even from loyal listeners, new guys that are coming in saying, hey, one, they want to know the Tony Allen clip, and then the other, they love the beat, right? So it's one of those, we're changing it because we got to roll with something different. Doug worked really hard on it. So, like, if you are one...
So careful.
I'm just saying.
With your criticisms.
I'm with you. Exactly. Please be careful because Doug worked hard on it, and you might like the old one. It's great. We all love it. It will hold a special place in our hearts forever, but it's time to make room for this one.
Well, and I think it's appropriate for what we're dealing with in Hornets land right now because we all love the classic Hornets, right? But at some point, we have to let go of the nostalgia. This is what I've been advocating for the franchise to do, to quit putting together montages of the past and pushing starter jackets on us and pushing old Hornets logos on us. And let's focus on building something that we can be proud of right now and in the future. And unfortunately, the reason we probably would have held on to this previous intro for just a little bit longer, but we had to get legal because this podcast is growing. This network is growing. We are all over the place. We're like on Samsung televisions. We are on fast TV networks. And so with that growth, with that exposure, with those different networks come different legal rules, and some of the stuff that we were using wasn't illegal necessarily, but I could not prove for a fact that what I was using was entirely legal. And so we had to make some changes for those different networks. And so yes, that is a all custom production. I tell you what though, I fought for Tony Allen. People don't know that that's Tony Allen, but that is Tony Allen doing a long time ago on Periscope, a now defunct live platform, one of the first live platforms. Tony Allen, still a member of the Memphis Grizzlies at the time, Grit and Grind. It was the first time that players were allowed to be a part of the All-Star selections, and so they were filming Tony Allen making his All-Star selections, and it was notable for the Hornets because he gave some love to Kemba Walker and made him one of his selections, but there were some funny bites, and the one that survived these many years is him going, "In a minute, we live." And I fought for that, and he's still in there.
Good for you. People love it. We can't get rid of Tony Allen. If you get rid of Tony Allen, even if he did not play one single minute for the Hornets, you do get rid of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
That's right.
That's how it feels.
I told Brian, that's what I told Brian. I said, if you make me, it's either Tony Allen or it's me. Like, if Tony Allen goes, I go.
I'm glad that he chose both of you. That's Doug Branson. New intro, new do, Doug Branson, but same old Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Don't need to change that. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me, WFNZ. Every weekday from 12 to 3. And we want to tell you that this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. We have some more draft updates, Doug. I'll let you lead the way on this. Where do you want to steer the car in the direction of the NBA draft conversation? Because I know there's somebody that looks like they have some draft stock rising for you. Do you want to go there or a different update?
We're going to get there in just a second, but I want to go ahead and get my mock draft today obligations out of the way. And we're still waiting on the newest mock draft from ESPN, from Phony Gavoni and Jeremy Woo, Boo Woo. We are still waiting on that one to come out. So instead,
is that how we're rolling? So Boo Woo has stuck. I like it. It's so bad that it's good. I love Boo Woo. Go on.
You know what? It will be Boo Woo until he comes on this show, and then we'll get rid of it. So, and now instead we're going to go to The Athletic, aka the New York Times, aka Kelly Iko, James Edwards, and Josh Robbins. They don't release many mock drafts here now The Athletic does with different guys like Vicini. They'll release their mock drafts, but this is the official New York Times mock draft, the paper of record, all the news that's fit to print, and they have Alexander Sarr going number 1 to the Atlanta Hawks, Reese Shea going 2 to the Wizards, Castle going 3 to the Rockets, so no Castle opportunity for the Hornets. Buzelis goes 4 to the Spurs. Cody Williams jumps all the way to 5 to the Pistons. And here we go, drum roll, number 6, the Charlotte Hornets select 7'2" center, 20 years old, out of Connecticut, Donovan Clingan. And the first line, Walker, is you cannot teach size, and Clingan has size in abundance. Now, I will say that I don't think they were really factoring in fit. I'm not sure if Kelly Iko really, or let's see who made this pick, Josh Robbins. I'm not sure how much Josh Robbins really dug down into the Mark Williams storyline.
Yeah.
It seems like the Hornets are dedicated to him being a part of the core. There was no mention of that. There was just BPA, best player available according to Josh Robbins on this board, was Donovan Clingan. How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, again, we discussed it. It doesn't make it a bad pick, nor one that's unprecedented in 2024 mock draft history. Clingan has been linked to the Hornets quite a bit as far as where people would project Clingan, where he should go, and that he could help the Hornets. You're right. It does seem like that type of mock draft has started to dissipate a little bit because of the Mark Williams rumors. It does seem to be understood that the Hornets really like Mark. They put some stuff out there as to say, we're not worried about his back injury long term. And they've been steadfast in that message, but I don't know how much we can believe him now. It's harder to sell that message in the regular season when they don't give us a timetable for him to return. And that means he just never gets back onto the court. So, okay, out of sight, out of mind. I guess it's nice that they're not playing games, so now they're not hiding the fact that Mark Williams can't, in fact, play games. We're going to have to see at the beginning of next season, but it does seem like that's starting to dissipate a little bit, and then they're going more so Castle, Reed Shepherd, Dalton Connect has been flirted with. Clingan, not as popular in the mock draft for the Hornets as he used to be at the beginning of this process.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about how much the Hornets are prioritizing fit in this draft. And I don't know whether it be the last draft or really any draft in the past. I would not advocate fit as much as I would advocate best player available because, again, you have not as a franchise won a playoff series in over 20 years. You haven't been to you have the longest NBA playoff drought. That's not going to be fixed overnight. So I'm not sure that fit for this upcoming season or even the next couple of seasons should really be all that much a consideration, especially if you're going to opt to draft a little bit younger. Now, Clingan is 20 years old. It's not like you're drafting a 19-year-old, but it is a little bit younger. So you've got some years of development ahead of you. And if that development for Clingan includes a jump shot, then that gives you something unique at the center position that you don't currently have and are honestly probably not going to have with Mark Williams. I just don't believe that that's going to be something that's a part of his development. Now, he could shock me and it suddenly become that, but I just haven't seen anything to indicate that. And so I think there's room to add that to your roster, and you shouldn't be afraid to do that. I could, if looking back on the previous draft, if you knew you were going to give LaMelo Ball the huge max contract and you wanted to keep him happy and make sure that you didn't draft someone like Scoot Henderson that was right into his position, if he felt more comfortable with Brandon Miller, I can at least see that because you were ready to give that guy a max contract, and LaMelo had gotten an all-star. He had proven that he was worthy of that consideration. Mark Williams, with all due respect, has not done any of that, has not played enough, has not shown enough to warrant that kind of fit respect in my mind. I mean, you can use a word like core, that's fine, but I see no problem if Klingon is the best player available on your board. There's no problem with bringing him in and making Mark Williams compete for that spot. And if he does, then I don't think you'll have a problem packaging Klingon with the multitude of number one first round picks that you have in some kind of future deal.
Or I mean, don't even package him, right? I mean, you're hoping that Klingon shows something enough to at least be backup center. There's opportunity for backup centers in this league. We've seen other teams go through two talented center situations before where then we'll just trade this other guy for depth. And that's certainly possible. I have compared it to eating your vegetables. If you draft Donovan Klingon, you might not even want to do it, but it makes some sense, even if there is a player where you feel like you could reach a higher ceiling. Because the idea for me, I would like to have all of the players that I draft in the first round, especially this high, in the last 4 or 5 drafts, Doug. Like, ideally, I would like for all of them to be on the floor at the same time. And it doesn't even necessarily mean start, because you can have them play 25, 30 minutes off of the bench. But can they play on the floor at the same time, or are you using one of these high draft picks to actively not have in closing situations or your starting lineup? But with all that being said, that's the ideal scenario. The other scenario is you take a really good player who has a really high floor, who can anchor and help you out in the paint defensively. I mean, the talk of the shot stuff, like, I'm just going to have to see it to believe it with Klingon. There's nothing to indicate that he's really good at it. So, okay. All of that being said, yeah, it wouldn't be a bad pick. It's just not something that I would be as excited about if there was a Reed Shepherd, Dalton Connect, Stephon Castle, player X that we're going to mention here in just a moment. Like, I would get more excited about those other guys.
Are you saying that you're worried that Klingon might not be hiding a shot in a bushel?
That's
correct. Are you a little bit burnt by my faith that was not rewarded in Nick Richards?
I've gone the Walker Kessler comparison with him before. They swore up and down, hey, Walker Kessler can shoot. We promise. In fact, he's going to go to Auburn, and then he's going to showcase that ability. He doesn't. And now here he is in Utah, not shooting the three. Where Mark Williams, Doug, that's the guy that I keep holding on to because we've seen it. There's actually signs to indicate that he can shoot, unlike Klingon or a Kessler. The free throw percentage coming out of college, it's good. We have Phoenix to hold on to, where he knocked down a couple of mid-range jumpers. The next thing you know, it's just LaMelo and Mark running a whole bunch of pick and roll where he's rolling to the rim, and they don't even give him an opportunity to hell with 20 feet. They won't let him shoot from 15 feet. I hope Charles Lee experiments with that. I hope that really is something that Mark Williams is hiding, just not on his own. I hope that somebody else is able to reveal it. But if Mark has all of the signs that he can shoot the three and Klingon doesn't, right? Like, maybe it's just Mark and it's just Charles Lee that's deciding to do it. And if he doesn't, can't, and okay. But like, that's the 3-point shot that I'm holding on to. That's the one I want to see. So I guess we'll see as soon as we get to the next season. All right, we have more draft conversation and plenty more still to come. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
Speaking of Charles Lee, he filled out his staff. It's complete, folks. We'll get to some of those names on the coaching staff in just a moment here at Locked On Hornets. Before we go to the coaching staff, I want to tell you that this episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere, and LinkedIn does all of that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours, and 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Hey, Doug, I teased that there's a prospect that is starting to climb draft boards. And as soon as I saw his name getting a little more popular, I was looking at some of the advanced metrics on him a little bit more so. And he's good. He's rising up Walker Mayall's personal big board as well.
Wow.
Not only mine, but I have a feeling for you. And if it's anything like us and anything like I see on my timeline, it seems like this guy might get drafted to the top 10. Do you want the grand reveal of who the prospect is?
I'll just tell you, it's Devin Carter out of Providence, the Friar, the Big East Player of the Year, the defensive menace. He's 6'3", 188, maybe 6'2", 6'3", but he plays a lot bigger. His defense is just out of this world. His offense is not too shabby either. He averaged almost 20 points a game last season for Providence. A little bit of an older prospect. So that would be the same thing we talk about with Connect and a few other guys at 6. Are you willing to take a little bit of an older prospect? But he averaged 19.7 points, 8.7 rebounds, 3.6 assists, almost 2 steals a game, a block. I mean, if he is 6'2" and he's averaging a block a game, his timing is incredible. What do you think about Devin Carter, who I think has been really labeled as the best on-ball defender, point-of-attack defender in this entire draft? What do you think about taking him at 6, which would be, I think, the highest, maybe even, I don't even think I've seen him at 6. It would be the reachiest reach.
It'll be high, and I think after watching him, Doug, I think I'd be okay with it. Devin Carter, so here's some of the numbers with him. You look at his combine. He actually broke an NBA combine record in the 3-quarter sprint. He ran a 2.87. He also was first in the max vertical leap, standing vertical leap, lane agility, he placed 3rd, shuttle run, he placed top 10. So if you're worried about the athleticism at the guard spot, he has that in droves. You talked about the defensive menace identity. We can see him navigate through screens really well and then contest on 3-point jumpers. We can see him point of attack defense, getting it up everybody's grill while they're trying to get some headway going to the basket. Devin Carter not going to allow it. You see some of the other stats here that I've come across, Doug. 60% at the rim, finishes pretty well at that size, at 6'2". You also
the
have him.
Need that. They've been terrible at even when they're healthy, they've been terrible at finishing at the rim.
It's huge, especially playing with LaMelo and Brandon Miller. So if you have 2 guys that handle the basketball a lot, 2 guys that don't finish at the rim very well, okay, well, here's Devin Carter, who actually has a skill set usually reserved for the bigger guys, except now it's going to be packaged in this smaller player where the bigger players are the ones shooting for the Hornets, but he can shoot as well. You mentioned the 3-point percentage. It's 37.5% on over 6 attempts per game. And I was looking at the catch and shoot numbers, Doug, because if LaMelo's still going to be your ball handler, you want him to be ready to go at the catch, right? He shot 40% from the perimeter on catch and shoot numbers. Not a lot to dislike. I think if you were to point to something, it would be the assist to turnover ratio. Not a playmaker. Don't want him to be the lead ball handler on this team. Good news, they have LaMelo. Devin Carter, I would not mind saying congratulations, you're a Hornet on draft night.
The fit is eerie because you can see him right alongside LaMelo Ball, who counters some of his weaknesses. I mean, one of the big weaknesses for Devin is just decision-making, but a lot of the decision-making is going to happen through LaMelo Ball and then secondarily through Brandon Miller, right? Mm-hmm. And so you're not expecting Devin Carter. You just want him to make simple plays, which will be perfect. That'll suit his strength. And then just on-ball defense, you can put him on. You can hide LaMelo Ball a little bit more. And as Brandon Miller grows stronger, he'll be able to take more wing assignments. And so, yeah, I mean, the fit is great. I think the one negative with Devin Carter is just if you're looking to size up at 2, you would want to play Brandon Miller at 2. You would want to find somebody like, it would be sort of the Stephon Castle example, right? You'd rather have just a few inches in height and a little bit more bulk than you get. Although, again, Devin Carter plays bigger, but, teams are just getting bigger across the board. So that would be the one negative. But I agree, man. In terms of taking an older prospect, I don't care. I mean, I think just having someone
not here, especially, right?
Not here,
like especially
right?
Not
having
this
a little
one.
bit more experience is going to come in And it feels like in all the interviews that I've seen with this guy, he wants to work. He wants to be great. I think Devin has a shot. It is one of the players that I would put in a bucket of players that has a shot of getting Rookie of the Year next year if he's in the right situation where he starts right away. I think that could be Charlotte because I just think he's got an opportunity to make a big impact on the floor.
And unlike Reed Shepherd, unlike Rob Dillingham, unlike Dalton Connect with just the defensive identity, you're talking about guys at that spot. The wingspan is good for Carter. So where Reed Shepherd and Dillingham have the basic, the Da Vinci equality where your wingspan is as tall as your height is, right? No, not with Carter. It's like 6'8", 6'9", and a 6'2", 6'3" body. So, that wingspan will do okay out there on the perimeter. LaMelo, a player who is taller, who I think uses his height to some advantage, but plays almost like a smaller player. Carter, the exact opposite, packaged in a smaller body and has some of the tendencies that you might expect from a bigger player. The rebounding from Carter, Doug, ridiculous, over 8 a game.
Hornets need that.
Multiple.
At every position. They need rebounding help at every single position.
He's impressive. He would fit a lot of what the Hornets are trying to do or what they have been lacking the last couple of years.
And it would be nice, Walker, if the Hornets had one single player who projected at some point as a defensive player of the year. None of the players they have right now qualify in that. I don't even think Brandon Miller has a shot at becoming defensive player of the year. I think he has all NBA potential, but that's going to be complete game. I would love for them to draft one single player that has potential for defensive player of the year. I think Devin Carter is that guy.
Stephon Castle, Devin Carter, those are the guys. If you want just straight up
But
defense,
unfortunately, Stephon Castle is off my board.
Yeah,
if he wanted to play here, he would be number one on my board, but he's not because he doesn't want to play here.
Last thing on Devin Carter, the three-point percentage, it was only good this past season. Wasn't good at South Carolina before he transferred to Providence. Wasn't really good his first year at Providence, but was on volume and in a couple of different scenarios. And it wasn't one of those things, Doug, where you just have a split the first half of the season. He was so amazing. The second half, he was terrible. No, that wasn't the case. It was more so like you can go with different stretches, arbitrarily just filtering out whatever stretch you want to roll with. And you have pretty good three-point shooting percentages. So nice
and
he
has a weird shot form. But I was watching an interview that he did with Kevin O'Conman for The Ringer, and Kevin asked him, "Hey, you've got a weird shot form. Do you plan on changing it?" And I love Devin's answer, which is no. It goes in.
Yeah, for sure.
You don't change it if it goes in.
So, yeah, the only thing you worry about is distance, more distance on an NBA line. Does that mean you have to go something more traditional? But we'll get to that problem.
You just shoot it a little harder. Look, it goes in.
There you go.
Bottom line, does it go in or not? It goes in, not changing it.
All right, Doug Branson, the shooting coach. Let's mention more about Charles Lee on the other side of the break. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
Charles Lee, newbies, got some staff members to introduce really everybody to because it is a filled out coaching staff. Finally, we're moving on with the full staff. We'll talk about it coming up next. Locked On Hornets. Before we do that, I want to tell you that this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. It's America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members, and it's the most fun and exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and your favorite players. You pick more or less on 2 or more player stats for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. With PrizePicks, you could turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer, and you can make PrizePicks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. It's very quick. You just need to pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections that you're locked in. And then if you're looking for promotions, PrizePicks has you covered there as well every single week, from lowering select player stats projections on Tuesdays, which increases your chance of getting a win, to getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. I like that. I like a little insurance built into all of this. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. One more segment to go on Locked On Hornets. Doug, Charles Lee has a new staff, and you know what's funny about this is that with the Hornets specifically, it's probably a bigger deal than what it would be for another team. And what I mean by that is if you go back to the other coaching staffs, we've had some staff drama before. where Kenny Atkinson didn't want to take this job, in part because the Hornets were trying to keep members of the staff from the previous Steve Clifford regime, or the James Borrego regime, I should say, and then bringing them over to Atkinson. They wanted to do so, not even necessarily because they respected every single one of the coaches, but the rumors were, it's like, well, these guys are locked into a salary, and the Hornets aren't very good at paying the assistant coaches. And so I hope that's not a problem anymore with new ownership, and I hope it's not a problem anymore with a new head coach. And so we have some names that we can celebrate. It seems like Charles Lee did a good job, and these guys have a good reputation. If you want to reveal some of the names here, Doug.
Well, we talked a little bit about some of the names that we already knew about, which is Lamar Skeeter, who was an assistant for Utah under multiple regimes, Josh Longstaff from the Bulls, Chris Gent, who has some connections with LeBron James, was the lead assistant for the Lakers and is a little bit of a shot doctor. So if you're looking for somebody to come in and help out Mark Williams or possibly Klingon or whatever, develop a shot, that's probably going to be your guy. But we have some new names, according to, Hoops Hype, and this is Michael Scotto, who in his latest mock, this is actually buried in a mock draft, where he has the Hornets taking Klingon, but he also mentions that he has no idea what the Hornets are going to do, and if they do take Klingon, that could signal a trade because of the fit concerns. But here are the names that he drops here, a little bit of news for your mock draft. Ryan Frazier, Zach Peterson, Matt Hill, and Blaine Muller. Blaine Muller from the Maine G League affiliate for the Celtics. So that would be Charles Lee has brought some folks that were from Atlanta and some folks from Milwaukee. Like, you can trace a lot of those connections. These are all Lee guys. And Blaine, one of the Lee guys from the Celtics, and they both might be coming over with some championship hardware.
Yeah, love it. The fact that everybody's going to be on the same page. You're not going to have different opinions in LaMelo's ear, Brandon Miller's ear. Everybody's going to be on the same page. Love to hear all of that. Love to hear that you're going with a couple of different coaches that are from the Charles Lee, Darvin Ham, Mike Budenholzer tree. So you getting Chris Gent, the shot doctor you mentioned, working with LeBron James, also a lot of experience in Euro League because he played for about 1 billion teams during his professional playing career. So I like the staff. And the other thing, not one single holdover, Doug. Not one single holdover from the previous staff.
That we know of. You know, a name that's interesting to me is the guy that coached the Summer League team last year. We know that Lee is going to coach it this year. But it was Marlon Garnett, who is reportedly like one of LaMelo's guys. Like, that's who LaMelo, we've seen him, in shooting contest videos with Garnett. But that was one of LaMelo's guys. So it'd be interesting to see if any of those names, Nick Friedman was a guy that the organization liked a lot for his player development, bringing guys over from Greensboro. A lot of this like second round success with the Martin twins were attributed to Friedman. So it'll be, those are two names that I'm still, because we haven't heard of any dismissals necessarily, and not that they would announce that, but when the full roster of coaches comes out, I'm going to be searching for those two names in particular. One more thing on Muller, he is not only coming over from Boston, he's a guy that came over from Milwaukee. So again, you can see these are all Lee guys who have known Lee from either Atlanta, Milwaukee, and so yes, he is building a staff of guys that he trusts. And and with guys with first names like Blaine, Matt, Zach, and Ryan, I mean, you got a frat pack right here. It's a frat pack of coaches.
You got a Chris too. I mean, it's so easy.
Lee there. Delta Chi. He is building Lee Delta Chi on the bench right now.
Do we have enough time for a who wore it best? Just one single number.
We don't.
Okay.
We do not. We are out of time officially. We've got to get out of here. So I'm going to say it was on the graphic. We didn't deliver, but who wore it best? It is coming up this week. We've got to get through these numbers. But there were too many juicy coaching nuggets, and we got bogged down with the Devin Carter stuff, but it's good. We are just a little over a week away from the NBA draft. And not a single person, I saw something from Amico Hoops. I knew I was going to see it from Amico Hoops, saying that a report that the Hornets were probably just going to keep the pick at number 6, and they weren't going to trade. They were just going to see what Lee could do with the current crop of players. And I was just waiting on Amico Hoops to say something, because I knew if there was one person that was going to speculate on what the Hornets were going to do, it was going to be Amico Hoops. And that tells me that nobody has any idea what the Hornets are going to do. I say this with all honesty, Walker. We've been doing this a long time. We've been covering the Hornets draft for a long time. And this draft, more so than any draft I've covered, I have no idea what they're going to do. Trade, keep the pick, player, Klingon, Carter. A lot of our analysis this year for this draft has been about what we like out of players. I have no idea what they want to do. And that seems to be by design. They are keeping everything in a black box, mystery. They don't want us to know. And, we'll see what happens. It's going to be exciting. It's going to make draft night actually exciting because we have no idea.
All right, that'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods, including YouTube. There's Doug Branson. Find him on his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Also Twitter, Doug Branson, LOH. Listen to me on Sports Radio, 92.7 WFNZ every weekday. Wes and Walker from 12 to 3 p.m. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.